Well, hello friends. We're going to do a review of the Rippa. This is the R350 mini excavator, and I would have to say that this is probably going to be a mid-size. It's not one of the smaller gas powered. This is a 3-cylinder diesel, and it's probably a good mid-range as far as its capability. It does have a nice lot of power, but it's a bare bones. It's not anything really completely fancy. The cab is nice. It's got really good air conditioning and heat. We'll get into that a little bit more here in a little bit. It is available from Rippa with a number of different attachments. You can put a post hole digger or a couple different buckets, a rake, and so forth. One thing that I noticed that it has is it's got the hydraulic lines for remote access of devices on both sides. It does not have a boss welded to the arm here for a thumb, unfortunately. They do sell a thumb kit for it. I don't know if that requires any kind of welding to put a mount on the arm. It's got lights on the boom. It's got lights on top of the cab, which are nice. It's got wiper in the front, fans on the inside, but like I said, it's got really good air conditioning. So it does, even with the fishbowl here, it does stay nice and cool. Now, some of the positives on it: it's comfortable. Nice cloth seat. You can see this one still has the plastic on it. This particular unit, I've had it for about 4 months, and it's got an incredibly low number of hours. So it's still as new. Typical controls. These are set for excavator functionality. It does not convert to backhoe, so you are set with that particular setup. Pedals on the floor for drive. This pedal is for operating the remotes on the arm. They do not switch over to a single function, a single direction only. So if you're using something such as a driven device on the arm, such as, let's say, a mulcher, you'll have to be aware that you're only going to want to use that in one direction when you're driving. Vents for the air conditioning, fan and temperature. These also serve to work as the heater, but the heater has to be turned on manually, and I could show you how to do that here in a little bit. Comfortable. It's relatively quiet in the cab, although it does not have a radio. It wouldn't be difficult to hear one if you had one playing in there while you're driving. Upsides, the tracks are long enough and wide enough that you can operate it at 90 degrees from the track. It does lift a little bit if you're digging harder soil, but as far as the digging strength, it's good. I can lift a full bucket easily. And the speed of the operations on the boom and the rotor, the twisting of that is nice. It does have pivot on the bottom of the arm, and that's done with push button here. Push button, and it'll drive the turret, or push button and it'll move the boom individually, depending on how you want to do it. The front window does flip up and open. The side window does slide open. The door, you can prop it open or close it if you're using the air. All in all, it's compact enough and functional enough that it'll do what you want it to do. Hydraulic fluid and fuel are relatively easy to access. This is a little bit difficult if you're holding a 5-gallon can, but it still works pretty well. Behind that cover are 2 big tanks. This does flip up and open if you need to access those tanks for any reason and so forth. The dozer does have plenty of push. I've never had any problems pushing dirt out of the way with it. Big piles of dirt, it just rolls right through that. So all in all, on the plus side, it's a good functional machine. Some of the maintenance issues I've run into: first of all, it has caps where you would normally find Zerk fittings to do your greasing. It does come with a Zerk fitting that you can swap out. There's one of the caps. You have to pop the cap off, screw in the Zerk fitting, grease the joint, put the cap back in. And the reason they do that is because they don't want you to break the Zerk fitting. That's what I'm thinking. When you're operating it, if you have a Zerk fitting that's sticking out, you don't want to get it bent by just, normal operation. And it does pretty well of keeping itself relatively clean as far as when you're using it. It doesn't get dirt all over it too much. All right, those are the upsides. Let's look at some of the downsides. The drive on the tracks. It's not a speed demon. It is slow. It doesn't drive. It doesn't have a 2-speed on the tracks. It drives, but it's not going to drive fast. It's going to take you quite a while to get where you need to go if you have to cover any ground. The unit I have here, I've had it for about 4 months. I have 1.8 hours of time on the clock, and I can give you a reason why only so little time. The tracks, they're going to fall off. They will fall off. This one has fallen off probably 9 times. It's not real difficult to put it back on, but it is involved. You have to pull an access cover, take out a fitting, retract the length of the mount for the track, remount the track, and then expand that fitting, and that's done with a grease gun. And unless you get that pumped up to, they recommend 10,000 pounds, 10,000 psi, I would highly recommend you doing that. Otherwise, these tracks are going to fall off. Second downside, like I said, this has 1.8 hours of use on the clock. Reason being is because from brand new, the unit doesn't charge. It's not charging. So you run the unit for a little bit, and if you're running the air conditioner, you're going to run the battery dead, flat. And because it's not charging, you throw it on a charger, you can start it up and drive it for a little bit more. But I didn't want to do that because you run the battery flat enough times, it's going to ruin it. Next downside, the interlock here engages the hydraulics when you start or when you're getting in and out of the unit, and flip that up. You can't flip up this arm, so you have to snake your way in, do a 180 before you can sit down. It's a little bit inconvenient to get in and out of this unit, and there's no way to change that. That's how it is. Next on the not so good list, I was running this the other day. I parked it. It had pretty much of a full tank of fuel in it. And this full filter here used to be mounted there. The hose for the fuel went out in this direction. Well, the bend on the bottom of that was a little bit tight, and it broke. And it drained the tank completely dry out of this hose. I had to remove this filter, move it over here so I could reattach it to this hose, because this hose obviously is not going to be longer. It broke right at the bend. So I snipped out about 2 inches of hose, reattached it, and put it back, and that seemed okay until I used it the next day. And when I was using it, I noticed a pretty strong smell of diesel, and I shut the unit off. I came back here, and the entire upper part of the engine bay and most of the engine was covered in diesel fuel. Because if you look, we have another break right here in a fuel line, and it's just started spraying fuel everywhere. If you look at other places right here, this fuel line, it's dry. It's about ready to go. This fuel line is about ready to go. This fuel line is right about ready to go. This one, all of these fuel lines are dry rotted. And that's kind of unfortunate, because this unit was built in December of 23. It's less than, it's right about 7 months old. And like I say, it's got 1.8 hours of use on the clock, because it don't like to be reliable. It it's very unfortunate because I've got probably 30 hours of use that I can book on this weekly, and I haven't been able to book any time on it at all. Constantly looking for gremlins. First it's not charging, then the tracks fall off, and now the fuel lines, even being as young as they are, they're dry rotted. So I've been contacting Rippa. Unfortunately, they are not keen to respond to any kind of solutions on this. They basically just told me, it'll be fine. Well, unfortunately, I've got a unit that isn't. If, in fact, the alternator worked and the fuel lines were not dry rotted, I probably would recommend this unit. If you want something that's rather a little bit bare boned, it's nice that it's got a cab, it's nice it's got air conditioning, it's comfortable, it's relatively quiet in the cab. The engine seems to run very nice when I can get it to run without fuel spraying all over. I've got plans to get additional attachments for it. But as it stands right now, it's out in the field. I can't drive it without replacing fuel lines. And Rippa really doesn't want to participate in the repairs of this, what I would call a new unit. 1.8 hours on the clock. So take that into consideration if you're considering a Rippa. Number one, where are you going to get service? And number two, is it going to be reliable? So far, Leave your comments below. Thank you.